Hello, I'm Wayward, and this is Scrap. Scrap is a total conversion StarCraft 2 mod available in the arcade. Uh, Even though it's built within StarCraft 2's engine, using its editing tools, Scrap is completely unrelated to its parent game. This is effectively a completely new RTS. Just happens to use StarCraft's assets. Scrap features two factions. Over here as the purple Fabricators. This is JLBoon, my co-designer, longtime player. And over here as the yellow Dendrites, this is Crescendo, who's a new player, but has been doing a ton of testing. So, as you may have guessed, the two factions in the mod are the Fabricators and the Dendrites. So, a lot of this might seem a little confusing. Not a lot of points of reference to go on. I'm going to pause just for a moment so we can talk about what we're seeing. This is the Fabricator. It's the core unit for the Fabricators faction. It's very much like an ACU in Supreme Commander. It builds a lot of the core units, takes bases, and if you lose your Fabricator and all of your foremen, you lose the game. Fabricators tend to be sturdy and fewer in number than their Dendrite opponents. The foreman is a mobile refinery. It can build these scrappers, which are a combat harvester, kind of like the ghoul from Warcraft 3. Scrappers, everything you see here, all of these units right now are custom. I've been able to work with some great modelers and animators to produce all this custom stuff. I'm still using some of the StarCraft assets, but a lot of the units right now have their own unique models. So as I said, the Fabricators tend to be fewer in number and a lot sturdier than the Dendrites. They are a fairly flexible force. The Fabricator can switch out its weapon. It has 3 different weapons that it can use. And Scrappers are, as I said, both combat units and harvesters. The Foreman actually does attack too. It's a fairly weak attack, but with proper upgrades it can heal and place turrets and do a lot of other useful things. One of the core things I was hoping to do with Scrap Mod is to have almost everything, as much as possible, to have a tactical use as well as an economic one. And I think that's turned out pretty well. So we'll switch over here. Let's let things play out for a moment. These are the Dendrites. Dendrites tend to be more in number. This unit here is the Receptor. It is a harvester, but it's also a refinery. When it harvests, it doesn't need to return to anything. It just returns to itself and goes about its business. I like to use an analog of Command & Conquer for the Receptor when I say it's both a harvester and a refinery. This is the Assembler. This is the core component of the Dendrite forces. They turn into units, they turn into buildings. You build a lot of them and do a lot of different things with them. Assemblers later in the game especially have combat utility. This early in the game though, it's mostly for turning into other things. This unit is the Concussor. It's the basic unit for the Dendrites. Oops. Pause just again for a second. It has an area effect attack, and when it dies, it explodes, dealing area damage to whatever it's near. They're very formidable, but as they lose energy, they do less damage, making it really important for you to keep them charged up. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. In Scrap, there are 7 base locations. This Vespene Geyser serves as a foundation, and then these 4 power nodes, 3 power nodes, serve as plots to put a building on. You see here that there's a building being constructed at this node here. The construction hub is the foundation of a Fabricator base. It builds buildings around itself. It can build turrets, and it can also recycle units and buildings that are near it. The Dendrites component building is the Axon. They train assemblers. You see an assembler here turning into the Integrity Core. This is a Tier 1 building for the Dendrites faction. Okay, so anyway, what we see here is a pretty standard early game from JLBoon. He has, I like to think of Foreman as the actual Fabricator base. So he's got 2 Foreman, and Foreman, kind of like the Zerg Overlord, also serves to increase the pop cap for Fabricators. Dendrites, on the other hand, Axons do that, and as you'll see, it takes only 2 Axons to hit your full population limit. It's really hard to curb Dendrites' ability to rebuild their units unless you take out their bases. For the Fabricators, you have these mobile healer units and utility units that, if taken down, can be relatively easily replaced. But for the Fabricators, it is... Pause just for a second to get my thoughts in order. For the Fabricators, since they're putting a lot of their assets into combat, it's very bad for them to lose an engagement. They have to be pretty careful about when and how they engage. Now you'll see that both JLBoon and Crescendo have been attacking buildings. There's a reason for that. So these are scrap piles. They're the resource for scrap. It works exactly like minerals or gold. But they are contained, some of them are on the map, like this destroyed barracks, or these piles here, and some of them are locked away inside these neutral structures. To destroy the neutral structure, it drops some scrap piles, and these scrap pickups. You move a unit over it, and it gives you additional resources. So destroying buildings is a way to continue to get resources. So you'll see players doing that quite a lot. And there's a bit of an art to knowing when to harvest and when to go kill your local structures. Okay, continuing on, let's take a quick look at what each player is doing. So right now, you have Crescendo is the right there. Crescendo destroying some structures to make additional resource piles for his receptors to harvest. We can take a look at the units tab. He doesn't have a lot. He's building needlers. These are mobile sniper units. Very long range, low refire rate. They're kind of a hit and run unit. This is the Synapse. It's an important utility unit for the Dendrites faction. They build turrets that can either do damage or slow down your opponents or heal your own units. Additionally, they have a mind control ability that lets them take permanent control of enemy units. This is the Glial. It's another utility unit. Its attack stuns enemy units, which is really good against the lower numbers of the Fabricators. Additionally, when attacked, the Glial pulses a healing radius and force field around itself. So this is starting to be a impressive little force here. Looks like Crescendo is going for a harassment strategy. JLBoon has taken a 3rd base, and bases are important for a number of reasons in Scrap. Units don't recharge their own energy in Scrap mod. They have to return to a base to do so. So taking additional bases allows you to recharge your units more. And you can see that's important for JLBoon because he's getting these excavators, which are a glass cannon unit, pretty small, decent range and refire rate, one of the higher DPSs in the game actually. It's a great utility unit, but when they are out of energy, they use energy as ammunition when they attack, and when they're out of energy, they have a greatly decreased refire rate, and the range is actually shorter. So it's important to keep them topped up. Now, in Scrap, each player has 2 tech paths they can go when they hit the end of their tech tree. For the Fabricators, that's metallics for utility, and magnetics, which is more manipulation and energy usage. So it looks like JLB is focusing on using energy units, and I don't think that Crescendo has hit the end of his tech tree yet. No, he still has one more upgrade to go. So you'll see that in the Units tab, JLB doesn't have a lot of stuff right now, and that's to be expected. This is the sort of disparity you'll see often in Fabricator and Dendrites games. It doesn't look like JLB has very much, but he actually does. Looks like Crescendo is pushing out with this large army to try to make something happen. While he's doing this, okay, he's being a little cautious over here. The other thing about bases, you'll see at the top, I'm going to pause again real quick, that there's a number under each person's name up here. if you have more bases than your opponent, and right now JLB has more bases than Crescendo, your opponent will start losing points. This data is what I call it. And whoever hits 0 data first loses the game. It's kind of like in Dawn of War 3, how that works. So unless Crescendo captures 2 more bases, JLBoon's not going to lose points, and unless he captures 1 more base or destroys one of JLBoon's bases, slowly, over time, JLBoon will get closer and closer to victory by reducing the data of his opponent. Okay, let's unpause and see what the plan is. Let's see. Looks like JLB is just taking his time, harvesting. He's got a really big army here of these excavators. Looks like he's got 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 of them now. That is a pretty nasty force. They don't have a lot of health, but they do a tremendous amount of damage. So what Crescendo is going to want to do is focus with these. We have a little engagement. I don't think that JLB was prepared for what Crescendo has. This is a really bad engage for JLB. He's losing a lot of scrappers. Looks like Crescendo's backing off. So these Needlers are really fragile. But this is not a great trade. He lost a bunch of scrappers. He lost half of his harvesting force right there. Okay, it looks like the excavators are coming in. Now let's slow it down just so we can get a better glimpse of what's going on here. So we've got a concave over here from Crescendo, trying to space his units out, keep JLB focused from being able to do any area damage. Not that that's something he's working on right now. Looks like over here we have some sniping of Crescendo's harvesters going on. That's a good use of the Fabricator. But this is, I think, where the main action is. So we have a turret placed here to attack this axon that Crescendo has built. We got this foreman getting close to going down. These Needlers are trying to snipe it down. Looks like we have a scrapper stolen. That's actually a really good steal. These scrappers are better harvesters overall than receptors. Let's see what we've got coming out here. We have a second synapse since he lost them. Okay, speed it back up slightly. So it looks like we've lost almost all of the Needlers to these excavators, and nothing that Crescendo has done has been able to destroy this nasty little force of excavators. This guy here looks like a point defense drone, but I don't have a custom model for it yet. It's called the Circuit Breaker. Okay, looks like Crescendo has lost all of his forces and is bowing out. He's down to 3 receptors. These receptors actually, they gain an ability, what they're doing right here. They have an ability to kill buildings over time. It does percentage health-based damage, so no matter how much health the building has, it can kill it in about 30 seconds. And if you stack them up, it actually kills the building quicker. So if you get a bunch of receptors attacking your opponent's base, it can be really nasty. So short little match, only one real big engagement. But I wanted to try to introduce people to the game. So I think this is not a bad start.